We're going to start with a discussion about the financial situation facing our country, the single biggest issue Iowans of both parties said they wanted you to talk more about. Would it be a priority of your administration to balance the federal budget every year? If yes, how? If no, why not? Senator Obama, I'd like you to start us off. You'll have 1 minute.
You know, over the last 7 years, what we've seen is an economy that's out of balance. Because of the policies of George Bush and the Republicans in Congress, not only do we have fiscal problems, but we've got growing inequality. And so people are working harder for less, and they're seeing costs from everything from college education to health care to gas at the pump go up. So what I want to do is get the long-term fundamentals right. That means that we are investing in education, we're investing in infrastructure, we're getting our trade deals structured so that they're fair, and that we are also ending the war in Iraq, where we're spending $10 to $12 billion a month. That is money that can be applied back here at home for critical issues. Now, the fact is that we're not going to be able to do this unless we're able to overcome some of the special interests that have clogged up the system and created trillions of dollars worth of tax loopholes and tax breaks. We need to put those tax breaks and tax loopholes back into the pockets of hardworking Americans.
And so, just so I'm clear, a priority to balance the federal budget, or not necessarily?
We are not going to be able to dig ourselves out of that hole in 1 or 2 years. But if we can get on a path of sustained growth, if we can end the war in Iraq, end some of the special interest loopholes and earmarks that have been clogging up the system, then I think we can return to a path of a balanced budget.
Governor Richardson, you wanted to jump in?
Well, as a governor, I have to, by law, balance budgets. I've balanced 5. And it would be a major priority of mine. And this is what I would do as president. We have to balance the budget. I would advocate for line item veto authority for the president, a constitutional amendment to balance the budget. There's $73 billion in corporate welfare that needs to be eliminated. I think we all have to sacrifice the Congress too, and that means eliminating congressional earmarks. That means also having pay-as-you-go policies in our budget, that if somebody thinks of a new program or is going to cut a tax, we've got to make sure that it's paid for. But most importantly, I believe it's balancing the budget should be viewed as an opportunity to have economic growth, the way we did in the Clinton years. We created new jobs, we stopped raiding the Social Security Trust Fund, and there was economic growth in this country. That's what I would do as president.
Senator Biden?
I think it's pretty straightforward, and it's not you don't have to make a choice of balancing the budget and/or leading with the priorities that most of us feel strongly about, from health care to education to the environment. And I just put it in real stark terms. It's about priorities. I apologize for my cold. It's about priorities. Just by eliminating the war, eliminating the $200 billion in tax cuts that aren't needed for the goes to the top 1% if you add it all up, and by cutting somewhere in the order of $20 billion a year out of the military for special programs, from Star Wars to a new atomic weapon to the F-22 to the Nimitz class destroyer, you can save $350 billion. That would allow me to do everything I want to do, my priorities on education, health care, and the environment, and still bring down the deficit by $150 billion. It would cost less than half of, so the Republicans are trying to sucker us into this. You either have to balance the budget and do nothing to make people's lives better, or you're going to balloon the deficit. They have ballooned the deficit with their bad priorities.
We're just going to go down the line with this one. Senator Dodd?
Well, listen, the federal government's much different than a state government. I say respectfully to Bill Richardson here. It's much more complicated and diverse. I've been a strong supporter, authored, in fact, pay-as-you-go budgets back in the early 1980s. Here in the Reagan administration, which failed, I might add, was a strong supporter of Graham-Rudman-Hollings, which was designed as well to inject some fiscal discipline into the process. But what we need to be doing is growing our economy, giving people a sense of confidence and optimism again, that we're dealing with some of the deep underlying problems that have caused their earning power to decline by almost $1,000 over the last 6 years. Healthcare costs have gone up 87%. Energy costs continue to rise. The cost of higher education. The cost right here at the University of Iowa has gone up 141% in the last 6 or 7 years. So we need to have an economy here that's driving to growth, creating jobs, which is the best social program anyone ever created, with a sense of optimism here. And then simultaneously, as you grow and deal with the underlying waste that's occurred, bring an end to the war in Iraq, which costs us $10 billion every month, then we can begin to put that discipline back into our process which all Americans are looking for. But the national government is a very different entity than the state government, requires a lot more flexibility to it.
Senator Edwards, we have 30 seconds for these rebuttals.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, first of all, what we have to do is get rid of the structural deficiencies in the American economy. We have to create jobs, protect American jobs. We have to strengthen and grow the middle class, which is struggling mightily in this country today. And one of the reasons that we've lost jobs, we're having trouble creating jobs, we're having trouble growing and strengthening the middle class, is because corporate power and greed have literally taken over the government. And we need a president who's willing to take these powers on. It is the only way we're going to strengthen and grow the middle class, have universal health care, have a trade policy that actually works for American workers, have a tax policy that's not favoring big multinational corporations, but instead favors the middle class and working people.
Well, fiscal responsibility is a very high priority for me. We don't have to go back very far in our history, in fact, just to the 1990s, to see what happens when we do have a fiscally responsible budget that does use rules of discipline to make sure that we're not cutting taxes or spending more than we can afford. I will institute those very same approaches. You can't do it in a year. It'll take time. But the economy will grow again when we start acting fiscally responsible. And then we can save money in the government by cutting out private contractors, closing loopholes, getting the healthcare system to be more efficient. We'll do all of this at the same time, but the results will take a while for us to actually see.